All right, thank you. Thank you to Roxanne and Kathleen for your presentations today. My name is Christine Oliver and I work with the Calgary Board of Education. I'm a former teacher and school principal, and as of August I've become the supervisor at Kingsland Centre with the Calgary Board of Education. Kingsland Centre is a reception centre, so it's really the first stop for families coming who are new to Canada, immigrant families and refugee families. They come into Kingsland by appointment and meet with our staff. And this is where they have, the children have an English language assessment. We get to know the families a little bit, see if there's any special concerns. We have in-school settlement workers with the Calgary Bridge Foundation for Youth that work out of our center. They meet with the family as well. And once that language assessment has taken place, we can talk to families about different educational options that we can offer the family in the Calgary Board of Education. Right now we are receiving students from Syria. We have just started this week to see significant numbers of students arriving, so it's very exciting. But I think just to piggyback a bit on what Kathleen was saying, this is normal business for us. So while there's been a lot of attention in the media about the arrival of students from Syria, we do see immigrant and refugee children in Calgary all the time. And it is really our aim to help these students feel safe, feel welcome in the school, have a great start, a great beginning, and then integrate fully into Canadian society. Our English language team then will work with schools and support that successful integration of students with refugee backgrounds. And this is a look at what Kingsland Centre looks like. This is a busy day at Kingsland. We probably see upwards of 8 to 10 families a day in the busy season, and can process anywhere between 20 and 24 students at our center. And right now this week, actually, it is busy. We are looking at on average 24 students coming through the center a day and then going into school. So this is our reality, and it's very, very exciting work. So what about integration? Because that's really our goal. Well, integration is not static. It's not one way, and it certainly isn't simple. But the goal of the school is that students from refugee backgrounds do gain that sense of belonging. They make friends. They are able to participate fully in the life of the school. And with this comes reciprocity. So the new student, while the new student has much to gain from integrating into their new home and environment, we also have much to gain from this sharing of culture and sharing of language, sharing of experience. So it's a positive thing in our eyes. What I'd like to focus on today in my presentation, along with helping our viewers to understand what is really involved in creating safe, caring, and welcoming communities and environments for our students, is also some practical tips for both administrators and teachers. And to this end, we have interviewed some teachers who work firsthand with refugee students and immigrant students. So throughout the presentation, I'm going to highlight some important aspects of that integration process, but also share with you some tips that come directly from the teachers who work with these students. So in terms of just starting with school leadership, we feel that school leaders are in a key position to create systems and processes that will help to increase resilience and facilitate successful integration of refugee students into their schools. So this includes things like creating an environment for understanding, acceptance, and integration. And it's so important to forge connections with the families, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Supporting teachers' professional learning is so important as well, along with developing that enhanced team to support the work that's going on in schools. You cannot do it alone. And utilizing available community agencies and really leveraging that resource to make the most of the experiences for students. So just some tips then for administrators if you happen to be a school principal or an administrator at your school. Learn about your refugee population. Who are they? What language do they speak? What's their culture like? What have their experiences been like? Getting to know that aspect will really go a long way in the integration process. Build relationships with the community, that particular immigrant or refugee community. It goes beyond just the individual students, but extends to family and to the community in general. Create a welcoming environment, and this is something we really strive to do at Kingsland and work with schools as well. Parents come from different countries where school looks very, very different. So really taking the time to spend with parents, maybe working through an interpreter if necessary, to build an orientation process. Things like the backpack, the recess, noon hours, school holidays, professional development days. These are all very new things for children and for families that are new to Canada. And so helping parents to understand that. What is the school bus? What are fire drills? These are things we take for granted, but are very important, and taking that time to do a presentation to parents and explain that fully and have them a chance to ask questions is really important. Providing resources to students, I think, is also something, if you can manage, is a really good idea. Things like backpacks, winter clothing, hygiene kits. Don't assume that these students come with all of these materials and resources. Use interpreters if you can. So reach out and find people in your community, because that communication piece, especially at the beginning, is so important. If you have a chance to use settlement workers or access settlement workers, another great resource. And support your staff. Don't assume that your staff will know about trauma-informed practice. So providing PD, supporting teachers, this is hard work for them. It will go a long way to success as well. Just some practical ideas to make your school a safe and welcome environment for newcomers. Translating materials will help. Learning phrases in other languages, just simple things like a greeting. How do you say hello in a different language? Even if you have a world map in the entrance of your school, and show on that world map all the different areas of the world that your students are coming from. That creates that sense of community and connections. And then maybe posting hello in different languages in the front foyer of your school. There's all kinds of things, potlucks, diversity calendars. There's a list of things on this slide. Really foundational to this process is establishing a relationship, not only with the student, but the family. And on this slide, you will see the house analogy. So it's starting on that first floor, building that foundation. And I know Kathleen, and I think Roxanne as well, talked about this, how students will come in that are new to Canada and with a refugee experience, who first need to have their basic needs met, and next their social, emotional, and acculturation needs. That has to really be understood as foundational before learning language and next academics can take place. So taking the time to address, do these children have food? Do they have adequate housing and clothing? And what about that sense of safety? Take the time to build that safe environment for them with routines and connections. Children need to make friends. Before they can learn math, they need to know they have a sense of belonging in their school and their classroom. Those needs need to be met first. And then we move up to the next floor of learning English. Not that it's happening in isolation, but certainly that understanding that there's a first floor and a second floor before you can really get to the third floor, and then moving on to that CALPS language, that more academic language. So looking a little bit further from that house model around creating safety and routines. Routines are really the easiest way to communicate safety to students who have experienced trauma. It's that consistency and predictability that's such a strong message for them. So creating predictable environments and routines will help students to know what's going to happen next. Regular activities throughout the day. My teacher is always at the door when I come in, or my teacher meets me at the bus with a smile. Consistent goodbyes at the end of the day. Those transition periods throughout the day, if they can be normalized and consistent, that'll help the students feel safe. Calming activities. So teachers do need to learn as part of their professional practice what kind of calming activities will work with these students. we want them to learn the culture as well. We want them to integrate into our society. And so, but there's some predictable kinds of special events like birthdays. Maybe the school has a monthly assembly, so there's some predictability to those kinds of special occasions. And that's where you want to emphasize, really doing it that way, rather than those kind of one-off events that might seem problematic for these students, especially at first, like lockdowns and fire drills and pajama day coming at them with no warning. So plan. These are certainly events that happen in the regular life of the school, and we don't want to say don't do those kinds of things. However, we need to think carefully about how we plan and prepare students for those kinds of events. And recognizing and avoiding triggers is another key element to this. So what are other teachers saying? They gave some great suggestions on how to create that safety, so the safety through routines. So routines need to be a priority. So it's a really great place to start when you're working with teachers around how to create that safe environment. Use the same type of activity to start each day. Allowing students choice gives them empowerment, as long as they can handle that choice. Visual aids, I cannot stress enough. Use visuals everywhere for every occasion as much as possible. Pairing students for activities, and sometimes refugee students are emotionally younger. So if you're going to buddy with another class, a good idea is to actually buddy your students with refugee backgrounds with younger students rather than older students. That seems to be a little bit more effective. Lots of hands-on activities, using a friendly tone of voice. Even a teacher's facial expression can communicate welcome and safety and hope, but it can also communicate threat or disapproval. So just building an awareness with all of your staff, not just the teachers who work directly with the refugee students in the classroom, but on the playground, in the hallway, at the office, knowing that tone of voice and facial expression are key communicators to students just arrived and just learning English. Another key aspect is building connections. And building connections for students with refugee backgrounds is foundational to success in the classroom. By connections, we mean, of course, the student and their teacher and the family, but also student to student, families' extended network as well, different agencies. So how do we go about building those connections? Here's some tips that teachers have shared. Greeting students at the bus, using humor, praise, positive encouragement, letting each child shine. That's about finding that strength that each child has, or their strengths, and capitalizing on that. And of course, I'm repeating a little bit here, but learning those basic words in the student's language is a great way to build connections. The normal social networks that would have helped students deal with trauma, like parents and grandparents, friends, their community, their culture, are often gone or severely compromised. So students whose normal development has been interrupted may not have the chance to learn how to manage their feelings. Teachers can assist students through developing basic skills of naming feelings, developing techniques for getting to calm when they're feeling anxious or afraid, and developing strategies for managing conflict. So what teachers say are things like watching movies, because movies are so visual, and you can see faces and interactions and emotion, and then talk about those emotions. Making word walls with a real specific intent around naming feelings and using the English word and also the child's native word to identify those emotions. Teaching descriptive language associated with feelings and relationships. And again, those visuals. So I've seen classrooms where on the wall in the calming corner, we have a variety of visual of faces that portray emotions, so that a child can start to learn to identify, I feel that way, or I feel that way. Those safe zones are really important to have in each classroom where you have students with refugee backgrounds, but sometimes instances occur outside of the classroom. So having a plan in your school to create a safe zone for students, maybe at the office or in the library, somewhere where they can go and be calm and feel safe, somewhere where there's visuals, maybe some stuffies set up for them to feel safe, is a good idea as well. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is teacher self-care, because this is hard work, as we talked about. Working with students with refugee backgrounds exposes teachers and other professionals in the building to very difficult situations and heart-wrenching first-hand stories. So if the teacher or the professional or the paraprofessional isn't taking care of themselves, then how can they be the best for those students? So principals and administrators need to really be aware of the importance of self-care for their teaching staff. And teachers need to practice things like how to regain and maintain that sense of calm, gaining a sense of personal balance between work and home, and underlying the importance of that, and always remaining hopeful. So some tips would be developing a support worker and having other teachers on staff who may not be directly involved with students from refugee backgrounds understand the unique nature of this work. We think that's really important, that it's not one teacher alone in the school, but it's really a whole staff, whole school effort. Talking and sharing with colleagues and developing support networks is really important for teachers. Finding calm, go for a walk, have a cup of tea. Student is acting out in class, find a way to sit and do something constructive and calming with that student. It'll calm them down, it'll calm you down. Eat, sleep, spend time with family and friends. I'd like to just bring your attention to a website where there's invaluable information and it's accessible to everyone. It's really easy to remember, teachingrefugees.com. This is a really great resource for any school district. You'll find all kinds of invaluable tips, resources, research at this website. So I'd encourage you to visit that. And I just want to acknowledge the work of a couple of great colleagues that I have. Mary Catherine Bailey McKenna is a psychologist with the Calgary Board of Education, and Suzanne Zilke is a principal at Annie Foote School. They contributed greatly to this presentation, and I just want to thank them for their help with this. Thank you very much, and have a good afternoon.